What's up guys, in this lesson we'll take a look at how to connect Ignition to MySQL database. MySQL is one of the more popular database offerings, and MySQL is the one that Ignition can connect seamlessly without too much trouble. In the last video we talked about how to install MySQL. The link will show up on the top if you want to refer that. So to begin the video, first we will go ahead and launch the Ignition. We go to the local host 8088 and launch the gateway, as you can see, and we go ahead and log in by using the login button on the top and enter your username and password. Once we do that, we need to go back into the configuration section. That's the home tab and status tab, but we need to go to the config station. Once we are in the configuration tab, we have option here to create a new database connection, or you could come back to under databases and connections. You could see that there is a sample SQLite, but we want to connect to our MySQL that we installed on the Windows. So it will give you all the SQL, all the database selections we have. We will select MySQL and hit next. Okay, once we select MySQL and we'll hit next, and in this window we're already seeing that there is a MySQL driver that's missing. Ignition uses a Java based platform and it needs some drivers to connect to the MySQL, and we'll go to this help page and it says you need based on the bundle version of Java, you need some drivers. So go down all the way until you see MySQL, click MySQL and select your operating system. For me, I'm selecting platform independent, and I'm going to select this zip file which we're going to download. It's this one, platform independent. This one, we'll go ahead and download that one and hit download, and no thanks, just start my download, and we'll wait for the download to complete. Now that the download is complete, we'll go back to the local host, to the configuration page of our gateway. We are back in the configuration, we are back in the gateway, and we go down to, we were here in the connections. Now we will go back into drivers, and in the drivers it's either missing, so we want to go back and edit. Oops, I selected Oracle, so we go back, need to select MySQL, edit, and then it's saying, and this is where you select the required jar files. So we go ahead and select choose. We go back to downloads. We go ahead and unzip all of them, extract all. Now that the extraction is finished, we'll go ahead and double click the folder here and select the jar file here, open, and go all the way down and hit save changes. And now you could see MySQL is, the driver for the MySQL is installed and it's good to go. So now we have repaired our JDBC driver. We'll go back to the database connections and then click create new database connection, create new, and we select MySQL and hit next. And we could name the connection as MySQL, give a description, but the main thing we need to look at is understand this connection URL, which has MySQL host, port, and database. And right now, if you don't give anything, it will go ahead and start with the test database, but we'll go ahead and use the password as, we'll use the root password. Later I will show about the Ignition password. I will go ahead and log in with the root password, and there are other options here, like which is extra connection properties. If this connection doesn't work, how to fail over to a different data source, but we'll leave that blank for now. Next, if we scroll down a bit more, we have some extra properties like the connection. settings, and failover, we'll leave everything as default. This failover will help me use some other failover data sources showing us that internal database there. If you go down and show advanced properties here, it will show up in advanced properties again the translator, the initial size, max active and max idle, and also some validation conditions if you want to create any validation queries to dictate how database ignition would connect to our database. Now is that we explored all of this, we'll just don't do anything but just go ahead and hit create new database connection. Now I have a error called successfully created, status is faulted. Let's see what's that means. Let's troubleshoot why we are having this faulted state. We'll open up the MySQL Workbench, and MySQL Workbench, it just shows you the first tab about all the connections, and this is the connections, and this is about the models which we have for the existing databases. We have a database called Scada full, and here is where all the connections are. We'll go ahead and connect with root. We're connecting to the local host. This is the same path which we used in Ignition. If you remember, this is that path. Since the MySQL is installed on the same machine as the Ignition, so that's local host. That's the same thing which we are showing here, local host, and the port we are using is 3306. Okay, so we'll go ahead and put the password, login, and instead of connecting it to a test database which we don't have, we will go ahead and give a name of an existing database and see if our connection is happy. So we have these are the schemas which we have, or the databases we have. We don't have a test database. That's the reason why the Ignition faulted. Instead, we'll go ahead and select we select the world database, right? So we go back and we go back to the Ignition gateway page, and just instead of test, we'll just rename this as world. Okay, and we go down and save changes. Now the connection is successful, right? Since we didn't have the test database, it never got connected and we faulted out. So now our connection is established. So what we did in this video was we were able to connect Ignition gateway, configure the Ignition gateway to connect to MySQL, and we were missing some drivers. We downloaded the JDBC drivers, that will let a Java based Ignition engine to connect to MySQL, and then once we did that, everything connected. So that's it, guys. This is how we connect MySQL to Ignition. In the subsequent videos, we will get into more details of sending the PLC tags into MySQL using Ignition. Thank you. If you like my videos, please share and subscribe.